The basic premise is he's on fire. If anybody's played, we've back to the NBA Jam days, video game days. NBA Jam. If you made 3 baskets in a row without letting the other team score, you were on fire. So anybody that's made a couple shots in a row, they're on fire. So if you made 3, great albums in a row, we're counting that as on fire. So that's kind of the basic idea. They don't have to be completely front to back albums, but I tried to pick ones that were for the most part. But there are some that are even 4 and 5, which is a whole different stratosphere. But 3 is harder than you think. I'm looking through some of the groups that I love and come back to regularly. I'm like, oh man, they kind of had a misstep here. They only had 2, and then they had 2 more, or they had 2, and then they had 3 more after that. But yeah, it's not the easiest feat to pull off.
And
so.
I think it was someone I think it was in the comments of our Instagram post, because we kind of put a teaser out there in the last week. I think it was there where someone made a good comment. It's like there are some bands that don't even have 3 total. So it's hard to even get 3 total, let alone in a row, because, like Tony said, there's a misstep in there, whether it's changing sound, changing fan base, label influence, all that. So to come
sophomore
hit
slump.
Sophomore slump. So to hit it 3 in a row, it's rare. And I really tried to pick 3 that are great. You want me to go, Nate, or you want to tackle this one?
Yeah. Why don't you go, Twan?
You want me to go? All right. So my first one, if you know me, and I'll obviously get into it, but if you know me, this will be no surprise. If you know me personally, this will be no surprise. And also, if you've been listening to this podcast, they seem to come out of my mouth maybe every other episode. I brought them up when we were talking about Dexter Holland and how we own Nitro Records. I also brought these guys up when Greg last week asked us what we were into. And they were just the first band that came to my mouth. But anyway, Crime in Stereo from Long Island, New York. They were active from 2002 maybe to 2012, 2013. But anyway, their first 3 albums for me hit the nail on the head. They satisfy exactly what we're looking for with this segment. So the first one was more of like a hardcore punk band, like more of a, I guess for the casual listener out there, more of a Warped Tour band. They're from Long Island, New York, so influenced by the movie Life, Kill Your Idols, and even some brand new later on. But the first album dropped in 2004, Explosives and the Will to Use Them, and that was it was aggressive, but also had some melody to it. It was on Blackout Records. That was the first time I heard them. Actually, it might have been the Split, or the Contract EP, but that was the first full length. Knocked it out of the park. The second album of this 3-album run is The Troubled Stateside, which came out in 2006, which was on Dexter's label. We had that. I told you that story of like he didn't know he's.
I'd love to work with them someday.
Yeah, I'd love to work with Crime in Stereo, and it's like, dude, you signed him, or someone in your camp signed him. But for me, that album, easily top 5 album for the last 15 years, and it's one of those like time and the place, time in your life, era in your life when you got into them. So in 2006, I was 21. So that album's perfect for someone in the early 20s. And I also saw them a shitload in that era. So like 2005 to 2007 down in Massachusetts, they played quite a bit. Because they're probably our age, maybe a couple of years older than us. So they had the freedom to, do a weekend up in the Northeast. And so I had a connection with that one. And then the third one was in 2007, which was Crime in Stereo is Dead. And that's when they really pulled from the brand new. Like there's some tracks on there that are very brand newish. And even more so, the album after that, a lot of brand new influence. But that one came out. The irony is that album came out in 2007 on Bridge 9 Records, which is more of a a hardcore punk label out of Boston, which you'd think they'd go back to their roots for. But for me, when we thought about doing this segment, that was the first run that came to mind. And of course,
Wow.
there's dozens of them, but that was the first one because it's just like, again, you saw it last week with Greg. He's asking what type of music I'm into. That was the first thing that even came to mind. And I actually, and this was not planned at all, I'm actually wearing a Crime in Stereo T-shirt, which
You are.
was not planned at all. I just happened to grab it. I just happened to grab it, and we happen to be doing this segment. So
I thought you'd be doing them, and I did. You got me to listen to Troubled Stateside. I actually like that album and listened to it a decent amount years ago now. It's been a bit since I revisited it, but I did throw a song on our playlist last week from them too, from that third album. What was the name of the song, Twan? Do you remember? The one you sent me. You said it was. I can't remember the name of it. It was off the third album of this run, though.
Yep.
It's on there. And I enjoyed it. I was like, oh man.
Small Skeletal.
Yes, I was like, I should, and I was a big time brand new fan. Listened to everything from start to finish with them, and multiple times. So I should probably visit that album myself because I haven't before. But I definitely listened to the Troubled Stateside and was like, yep, no, I definitely see the appeal here. These guys are pretty awesome. So that's a good pick.
Yeah, that was the album. The Troubled Stateside. They introduced some melody, not clean singing, but wasn't as aggressive. And I mean, I'm kind of a fanboy. I've flown across the country for a few bands in my time, but I actually flew out last summer to see them on a 3-leg reunion tour in Anaheim, Hollywood, and San Diego. So I flew out for all 3 shows, and then actually the third album of this run, Is Dead, they did a 10-year anniversary in 2017 in Boston. I went down for that.
Nice.
I'd say show for show, it could be the band I've seen the most overall.
Any idea how many times?
High teens.
Yeah.
Mid to high teens, realistically.
That's awesome.
Yep.
To have a favorite band and see them that many times is awesome. And it's hard. It's actually, that makes sense with that size of band because they're actually touring that much. When it comes to like bigger bands that like you want to see and they're just doing, like Greg said, one run and maybe a B market run, that's twice, and then 4 or 5 years go by, depending on the band, I guess. So that's awesome, man.
If they're a really big band and they're playing really big venues, you're not going to shell out $100 a ticket for. I mean, you might, depending on how you're doing, but yeah, it becomes pricey.
Yeah, these tickets are $20, and
right.
The LA show was at the Roxy, which is cool.
Yep.
Nice.
So it's iconic venue, but I mean, I saw them in a lot of like Elks Lodges, VFW halls, but then also I saw them open for Glassjaw at the Palladium, because that's the whole Long Island connection. They took them and another Long Island band, This Is Hell, out for a run.
Sweet.
And yeah, I love those 3 albums, and we talk about where the run ends. For me, that really is where it ends, because there's another album after that. I was trying to describe you to someone, and they try to experiment a little too much. Definitely still has that brand new influence, but I never revisit it. Some tracks I do, but for the most part I don't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
But
Could you? What are your like? You got a key track or a couple tracks from either? I'll probably end up putting them on the playlist, but anything you can think of off the top of your head that's like, yeah, those are the ones I really like. This couple tracks in a row, or where it's
Staple tracks, yeah.
So off the first album, I would say favorite track is Play It Loud Fuckers. On the second album, Troubled Stateside, I would probably start with Bicycles for Afghanistan, and then Is Dead. Small Skeletal's the most accessible. But there's a bunch of tracks.
Yep. Nice. Well, you'll see that on the playlist this week, guys. So if you've never peeped them before, I would encourage you to. I didn't know them until I became friends with Anthony, and he told me about them. So definitely worth your time. And kind of a testament to what we do here, right? We're all over the map, and that's on purpose. And that's because we love everything. So I'm glad it's fun to go from Kanye to Crime in Stereo. Who else is doing that? Nobody. Nobody.
And then to whoever Nate's going to drop right now.
Yeah, right. Nate's going to, yeah, exactly.